Good morning. Welcome to day 3. I'm actually happy to get to say good morning. I usually get the dreaded afternoon session, so this is a little bit easier. So good morning. My name is Charles Ackerman. I'm the president and CEO of Digital Video Systems. DVS is proud to be a longstanding sponsor of the Seatrade Cruise Show. We are a 30-plus year communications company based here in Miramar, Florida. We specialize in broadcast satellite solutions. Happy to see the energy back in the industry, as I guess everybody was saying yesterday. We've kind of concentrated the last 2 years or so on investing in our infrastructure and our people. We're very focused on customer support. That's how our business has been run and developed over the years. We've worked also in establishing better and stronger relationships with our partners, especially our content partners. We've been very fortunate to build long-standing relationships with them. We continue to do that. We're going to show a clip here in a minute of a product that we developed a number of years ago. We try to be centric around our customers, what our customers' needs are in terms of solving problems for our customers. So about 5 or 6 years ago, our customers asked us for a product to help them with some problems they were having, and we've been very fortunate in that product has taken off, and we're going to show you some essentially advancements that we've had with that product over the last few years. So again, welcome to day 3. We're happy and proud to be here and be part of this, and very excited about the future of this industry and where things are headed. Thank you, and let's get started with the Tech Talk.
Okay, well, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian Richardson, CEO and co-founder of theICEway and Seatrade Global's Technology Ambassador. So firstly, I just want to apologize for not being there in person this year. As some of you might be aware, I'm currently suffering from severe sleep deprivation and overwhelming feelings of joy, having welcomed into the world a baby boy just a few days ago, so I couldn't be at Seatrade. But it's exciting times for me personally, and it's very exciting times for the cruise industry because we're finally getting back into service with bookings flowing in after the last 2 years of that's what to be probably the hardest period for everyone. However, none of us have rested, least of all in the technology sector, which has played a key role in the restart of the industry. Companies have continued to innovate and invest in new solutions for health and safety, contactless guest and crew experiences, and operational efficiency. Now, many of which you can try downstairs in the Interactive Tech Zone. Now, if you've not had a chance to look around the Interactive Tech Zone on the show floor, I recommend it. Just go take some time and go downstairs and explore it. There's some really good examples of artificial intelligence and machine learning, holographic technology, facial recognition, and virtual reality solutions, all of which you can try out and experience to see how these technologies are being used and applied on cruise ships. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the companies that have contributed to the Tech Zone this year. I hope it's going to become a permanent feature at Seatrade for future years. So we've got some really good sessions lined up for you today, and you'll be hearing from various technology leaders from across the industry, from companies like Holland America, Disney, Ponant, Royal Caribbean, who you can see on stage, and MSC, and also Hurtigruten, amongst others. We're going to be discussing things like how the cruise industry is adopting cloud technology, how companies are using data to improve the customer experience, and we'll also be having a TED Talk all about mobile apps. Finally, we'll be finishing the morning's content with discussing the role of medical systems on board before we move into the afternoon's programming, where my good friend Joost van Rey is going to be chairing the afternoon sessions with the Smart Maritime Network. But we're going to be kicking off today with this tech talk from the top, and we've got two very distinguished guests on the panel. One that you can see on stage, Jay Schneider, Chief Product Innovation Officer for Royal Caribbean, and we also have Luca Pronzati, who's attending virtually, who's the Chief Business Innovation Officer for MSC Cruises.
Thank you.
So, thanks, Luca. So I might start with you, Luca, because obviously you're virtual like me, and Jay's looking very alone on the stage at the moment. But you're virtual for other reasons than me, having tested positive for COVID just before you had to fly out, unfortunately. So the first question I want to just pose to you, which is quite apt, has COVID been good for innovation or not so good for innovation?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, Ian, and I'm really sorry for Jay to be alone on stage, but that's life. And so COVID has been for us has been good and bad. It depends from which angles and which perspective do we want to approach this. So generally speaking, very good, because technology has played another key role in supporting the restart of the operation, and company like MSC Cruises, which has invested massively already before the pandemic, has been in the position to rely on the infrastructure and ecosystem that has been able to deploy already with a longer-term vision in order to convert what was needed to support the operation. Bad from the fact that clearly, from March 2020, when all the ships around the globe have been stopped at the import or somewhere else in the sea, I mean, also our programs has been completely reshuffled in the sense that, innovation is clearly supporting the growth of the business and the company, enabling a new experience, elevating the experience, bringing new products, new services. Being completely stopped has cut our program from top-down approach, and this was clearly reasonable, but this was not good at all.
Okay, what about you, Jay? Do you think COVID's been good or bad for innovation?
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for having me. And this is really weird, being the only panelist on stage with a little tiny monitor of you all down below. So, and I'm sorry you couldn't make it. Listen, similar to Luca, I think the pandemic has created both challenges and opportunities for innovation. From a challenge standpoint, as we all know, hiring talent is impossible, and we need talent to innovate. On the flip side of it, it's made us work smarter and to a lot of degrees harder and find new solutions to problems that we've never had to solve before. And so from that standpoint, it's bolstered innovation because it's made us think about problems in a completely different way. So.
Okay, good. And what, in your view, Jay, what do you think the biggest game changer in terms of technology has been in the last 2 years?
I mean, listen, we are all getting tested at some frequency with technology that never existed before. So you could argue medical technology is probably the biggest game changer in technology. We've got a worldwide series of vaccines we never had before that are impacting our crew and our guests throughout the world as an industry. The rise of just even this, I mean, interconnected video systems, while great prior to the pandemic, are now part of the normal kind of DNA of our society. The way you can tell that is we're pulling off a hybrid talk panel right now. And so, systems to help support, frankly, the planet through the pandemic are really what I think are some of the game changers. I know we'll probably talk about future game changers, But I think you're seeing things in society today that are going to continue.
Mhm. Okay, great. Now, I just want to sort of talk a little bit about how your two individual companies dealt with things over the last couple of years. So it's fair to say, I think, that the circumstances of operation were a little bit different between MSC and Royal, being that MSC was able to operate, albeit very greatly reduced, and Royal had a suspension of service. So I want to talk about those differences. So starting with you, Luca, you had a ship in operation where you were able to tweak iterative updates to technology and processes in a live environment. Do you think that gave you an advantage, or did it present certain challenges?
Well, at the time being, when we were, working to restart the operation, I'm speaking about basically spring 2020. Clearly, having some ships close by in the Med has been a great advantage for us, because at the time being, we were investing quite massively on technologies like contact tracing in order to be part of the protocol to restart the operation. So having the possibility to reach quite easily at the time, which was impossible to move between countries, and even to move inside the single countries, to reach the ship and being able to go on board and perform all the necessary tests of these new technologies has given us a great advantage. So, and again, and the advantage overall has been to have a vision to invest in technology and an infrastructure already before the pandemic, to be able to rely on such kind of assets for supporting the restart of the operation. So to me, it has been a great advantage to go there.
Okay, well, and then Jay, you had, given that your ships were suspended, you took the decision, I think, to send a ship out to Singapore and run technology trials. I mean, how smoothly did that go on the first revenue sailings that you had? Would you have done anything differently?
Yeah, so Luca said it well. I think the industry as a whole, the pandemic has been horrible on our business, right? But I think the industry as a whole has spent the better part of the last 5 years prior to the pandemic investing in technology infrastructure. Luca said it well, that allowed us to, in the case of at least technology, snap back into service in a much healthier way had we not. It allowed us to layer in things we'd never done before. But in the case of Singapore, as we restarted Quantum of the Seas, which was a great place to start. The government was super supportive. They worked very closely with our team in Asia. But the challenge we had is trying to get new technology to a ship on the other end of the globe when travel was largely shut down, when restrictions were in place. We were sourcing things like network engineers and hardware engineers to try experiments for contact tracing technology when there was a 28-day quarantine just to get into Singapore for international folk. And so, if you think of the challenges that we faced, and Luca said they had a European ship next to a European office, which made it, and I'm not trying to say Luca had MSC had an easier task, but trying to really get to Singapore and get the right people and capabilities on, we wanted to trial contact tracing technology like frankly the industry did. We assessed it at something like we needed 4 months to get what we needed to go from point A to point B. We had 4 weeks. The hardware showed up 2 days before the government got on board. The first revenue was 7 days later, and it was learning on the fly. Now, again, it goes back to the talent we have. We didn't start in Singapore. And while we weren't operating revenue cruises, we still had crew on board ships throughout the Caribbean. And so we took a like-for-like network ship and immediately started building out our systems in parallel to make sure that as we returned a ship into service in Singapore, that we exactly knew the playbook to do. And so we went through a very methodical process on Navigator of the Seas, really just building out the restart of the ship, the restart of new technology layered on it, because it wasn't just contact tracing, it was medical technology, integration of health questionnaires and things that we had to do that we'd never done before. And so we modeled all of that on a ship nearby while then trying to convince people to go through a 28-day quarantine when we couldn't source what we needed to locally or in the region.
Right. And is there anything, if this ever happened again, God forbid, is there any sort of lessons learned that you would think you would make you do things differently?
For me, we're still in the pandemic. I haven't seen the World Health Organization call it an endemic yet, although I think I look at the news every day hoping that happens.
It depends which country you're in.
Yeah, that's fair. Or what part of the United States you're in, I guess, too. So I take away a couple of things, and I think we, at least Royal Caribbean Group, take away a couple of things. One I've already mentioned, the industry's investment in technology won't stop. It future-proofed us to some degree for the pandemic. It will future-proof us for the next whatever. I joke all the time that we didn't anticipate a pandemic doing this to our industry. We've got to start future-proofing ourselves for the next alien invasion, because we've got to start thinking out of the box of what are the things that we as an industry need to do to future-proof for the next challenge. And so I think that's one of my takeaways. And then the other takeaway is we have a digital human in their own normal life are far different today than they were prior to the pandemic. Their expectations, their digital life is very different. And so as a company and as an industry, we've got a different challenge moving forward for how we have to meet our consumer needs. Their needs are based on, as we all know, Instacart and instant gratification through their cell phone and other technology. The industry no longer has time to deal with antiquated technology, antiquated processes. That time is now in the past.
And Luca, what about lessons learned for you, or what are the biggest things you learned?
One of the biggest lessons learned has been definitely the fact that if you really invest in anticipating as much as you can future trends, in order to find yourself in a position at least to scale and to be flexible enough to adjust to the new different condition, this gives you a great advantage. So back to the point of investing in technology in general into the industry, this represents for me a great advantage of not only for now, not in the past, but also for the future. So as Jace was mentioning, we will never stop investing in technology, because during the pandemic, we appreciate a lot how technology can really play a key role in supporting even basic operation, not nice to have, not fantastic experience, really basic operation to restart, processes to be able to operate, people to operate on the ship. And this is something that, either you have it or otherwise you would have needed too much time to deal with and to build and to deploy that during a pandemic is not possible. The point made by Jay on, the supply chain has been a nightmare. For us even to get, the chipset for the contact tracing has been a nightmare. Every day we got a delay message from the suppliers from China, because the supply chain logistic that was completely mad. So we were really running around the clock in order to make it happen. So clearly, if you started from a different position where you have already consolidated infrastructure, you have already a strategy in place that you built already in the past, you can always leverage on this. Then clearly, we come out from this situation, and we are not yet out completely, with the stronger people, much more resilient. So we are ready to, to face the future growth and the future challenges. And this is something that is a unique asset, because I don't think any other industry in the world, apart from in general travel and leisure, has suffered such a challenging time as we have done during the past years.
Agreed. And I just want to talk about new builds for a second. How has the last 2 years affected the technology on new builds, if at all?
I can get started.
Sorry, you can go for that, Jay.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways it's been affected. One, and again, I'm speaking for Royal Caribbean Group here, we've leaned into technology that we had prior to the pandemic to make ourselves more successful. our 3D cave in our innovation lab in our port office that allows our new build team to design in 3D has allowed us to do things, to visualize things, deliver things that we never could have done during a pandemic without it. So tools to really understand the technology, to understand the delivery of a ship when you physically can't get into a country is critical, right? The variant of that, variant's probably the wrong word to use right now, is it? The variation of that is, we'll walk around a shipyard with an iPad and FaceTime. So you're now finding, unique hybrid meetings with shipyards around the world to do, and so it's just using consumer technology to pull it off. So I think that's one. Number two, and Luca hit on the point that I know I hit on, supply chain is ridiculous right now. And yes, the industry has a history of future-proofing itself for supply chain fluctuation. But when it comes to technology, we've never seen some of the challenges that we're facing right now. TV ordering time, hardware ordering time is frankly ridiculous. And so, we've got new builds coming up where the hardware is showing, we joke when I joined Royal Caribbean, I joked about how do we take a new build cycle and think more iteratively and agile, especially as technology changes so frequently. And now we're stuck in a world where supply chain is so long, it's almost a new build schedule level long as you think of the delivery of some of the things that we need. So it's a constant tug and pull that has been exacerbated by the pandemic.
Okay. And I also just want to touch on crew, because obviously they've been very important throughout. What sort of technology has been implemented in the last 2 years to sort of change the crew experience? Sorry, Luca, you can maybe go with that one.
Clearly, having to deal with, what the pandemic has obliged us to adjust our way of even delivering the services on our ships. We had to completely rethink in an holistic way the human interaction between people. So people in general, speaking about guests and crew, because they are all human, clearly. Okay, so this clearly has been a challenge because we were always and primarily focused on the passenger side to really disrupt the experience by leveraging on technology. But we had to focus also on the crew side because, the population on board was just one, made of different people. So one of the biggest challenges has been, for example, on the contact tracing, which for the first time ever, we were able to give a wearable to even each single crew member, which now I can tell you that is so much appreciated that they don't want to get rid of this because they appreciate the fact that they can move around the ship, they can open up the cabin, they can sign in, sign off from the shift on board just with a wearable without having to bring the cruise card with them, with the risk of losing the cruise card and so on. So again, the pandemic has pushed us to really rethink also the kind of experience in terms of human-to-human relation on the ship and how technology could play a role for that. And this will never stop. Whatever we have achieved, unfortunately, in such a hard time, is something that we will leverage from now on for the future. And also the crew, is part obviously of our staff, is a key asset, is a core asset of the experience on board. And we needed to invest much more on technology that can, from one side, simplify the job, the task they needed to perform on the ship, because then they will be able to focus much more on the experience they will be able to deliver.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to come in on that, on Jay?
I think the only thing I'd add is, we had largely digitized, in fact, fleet-wide, largely digitized crew onboarding and kind of those capabilities prior to the pandemic. And so much like our guests, snapping back as we return crew to ships, we just built on top of that. The fascinating thing not fascinating, the add-on, I guess, would be as we have returned ships, capabilities we were testing prior to the pandemic, we are now scaling in our return to service. And so crew's desire for work tools, our stateroom attendant experience that allows stateroom attendants to have an app that helps prioritize their work queue and gives them information that they never had before. Those sort of work tools, they're expecting as they come back in and demanding more of. And so for us, it was just really an issue of how do we scale the things that we were experimenting with prior to the pandemic.
Okay. Okay, so looking forward then, what do you think, you can start with this one, Jay, what's the biggest game changer in terms of technology in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I assume since we're doing this in a hybrid way that next year we'll be doing this in the metaverse and then it won't really matter. So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to continue to see, and it's less about game-changing technology. It's, I think, game-changing challenges. Again, I go back to what I said before. We have a digitized human, and that human is both a guest and a crew member who are going to demand more and more out of our companies and our industry in the technology that they use day in and day out. And so I think that's a pattern that is, not that we ever thought it was going to go away, but I think it's going to accelerate at a pace that maybe even the industry has a hard time keeping up with. I think the second thing is going to be more and more technology that people got used to, this being an example of it, where the expectation for seamlessness on board our vessels is going to be critical. And then, yes, as we get beyond that 2 to 3 year horizon, I think we'll start to see new types of technology that frankly are nascent today that we're going to have to continue to adapt to at a greater speed.
Okay, thanks. And Luca?
Well, I mean, as Jay was mentioning before, so basically the pandemic has clearly, raised the bar in terms of digital behavior from our consumer side. And the fact is basically because, we have been always, everybody stuck at home for, a longer period. And the only way to interact with the world were the digital channels, the digital platforms. So even the people that were not so much digital addicted, they could appreciate how they could deal with the different brands in a digital way. This clearly is pushing, is putting pressure on the brands, and the reason why is, that now the consumer is really benchmarking the experience between different sectors. So, and this is the challenge we have ahead of us that we need to tackle, and it's not only on the ship; it's starting even before the beginning of the journey. So I think we all need to focus as an industry how we can really reimagine in an holistic way experience, because the consumer and the guest will really expecting us to deliver an experience that could be at the same level of other brands in different sectors that are really mastering the digital space. Then as far as future technologies connected to what I said, I do still think that in general IoT will be playing a key role again in the future, because will allow us in general to gather additional data, and data is really what will allow us to be in a position to deliver a more personalized and customized experience, which is what the consumer are looking for much more today than before the pandemic. Again, for what they appreciate during the lockdown. And then clearly we are looking with interest to the metaverse and to the NFT, and the crypto behind, because this is a huge rising trend that we see into the world and into the market, and we cannot just stay passive. But let's see what's coming up in 1 year time, and maybe we will have a better view on that.
Okay, great. And final question then to both of you. So firstly, I'll stick with you, Luca. What are you most excited about at MSC for 2022?
Well, I'm most excited about my company is that we are being able to navigate in such hard time in a very cohesive way with a great team and a great pool of resources and talents, and even from the leadership team, we really got the necessary support in such a very hard time for all of us. So this is I'm really proud of. And the values of our companies, I mean, being a family company, a family group, are unique, I think, into the industry. Then I am also very proud of the fact that no matter the situation, our company has been able to confirm all the investment plans for the near future, but also the long-lasting one that were already on the pipeline before. So I'm specifically referring, for example, to the new Miami terminal we just started to build, but even all the new buildings that are confirmed, and also the launch of our Explorer Journey luxury division. So this is great because a great message for us, after such a very difficult time where we all together in the industry faced a very bad period. So these are the messages that give us the positivity to think about the future, and to react and to come out with even more energy. And I'm really also very happy to be here today. Unfortunately, I am virtual, as Jay said, but I think it's great that the Seatrade is restarting, because again, it's a very positive message. We need the positive message, and we have a positive message.
Absolutely. What about you, Jay? What are you excited about?
As an industry, one of the things I'm most proud of is over the last 2 years, we have really pulled together across every cruise corporation, operator, et cetera, to work together for a common goal, which has been to get us back into service as an industry. That's from health and safety. We've said we've never competed as an industry on health and safety. We haven't. It's from partnerships. And it's been inspiring to watch us pull together as an industry with CLIA support, with the FCCA support. It's just been awesome. However, that said, I'm kind of looking for the next chapter, which, and Luca kind of alluded to it, and I'll use the Royal Caribbean Group moniker instead of the MSC moniker. But, what I'm most excited about is we have the best hardware. We have the best technology. We have the best destinations. We have the best customers, or the best guest service. All of that together makes the best vacations. And so getting to do that day in and day out is what I'm really excited about. Not that I don't love my friends at MSC, Carnival Corp, and elsewhere, but getting back into the DNA of building the amazing things that we do day in and day out, and delivering amazing vacations to people is what gets us up and excited every day. And so I'm most excited about focusing on that.
That's great. That's a great one to finish on. So I think we're slightly over time, but we started a bit late, so that's fine. But I really want to thank you both, Luca and Jay, for all your insight, and that was really good. And I wish you next time, hopefully we'll see each other in person. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Luca.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Goodbye.